We all know food costs too much at games, but what if I told you this slice and this beer and these hot dogs are all part of an illegal scheme perpetrated by billionaires?
I'm used to outrageous prices.
I would believe you because I believe that everything on Earth is an illegal scheme perpetuated by billionaires.
But this is just a special kind of hell.
I'm at Madison Square Garden, not just for a mildly stale pretzel, but to meticulously catalog and quantify just how badly we're getting ripped off. All to prove a point. We don't have to live like this. Because there is something felonious about these francs, and something we can do about it. I should start with a story that for months now I've been obsessed with. The story of a guy who is fed up with skyrocketing prices and unprecedented inflation. Not today, but 1978, when a high school teacher named Ron Gordon waged a one-man war against the price of a hot dog. And I think part of my obsession was this. There was something we've lost since Ron's day that helped.
I think on a fundamental level, the problem is that sports viewership is way too focused on the top end now, where it's like, you know, everyone pays in for the Super Bowl or the World Series or whatever, but the thing that keeps sports teams alive in the long run is you have local stadiums where local fans show up for local teams, you know? Like you want sports ball games. People can just drop on in, right? But we don't really have that in the United States. In the United States, going to a local game is this big ordeal. Like you can do it, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes the tickets are super expensive. And one of the reasons the tickets are so expensive is because all these stadiums are fucking massive. They're huge stadiums, right? So they're really expensive to build, and they're built with like a public-private partnership, whatever. So it's like a bad financial scheme, you know?
The secret for how we can bring down the skyrocketing cost of being a sports fan today. I had to find him. So I packed my bags for California to figure out what he knew and what he could teach us.
You haven't used the word crazy yet. That's good. I'm Ron Gordon, friend of Alec Opperman, who's out here from New York, thinking, what a mistake I made.
In 1978, Ron caught wind that the price of a hot dog was going up by a nickel at San Francisco's Candlestick Park. The reason? A new health ordinance mandating that vendors wrap their wieners. That nickel would pay for the labor and bring the total cost to 75 cents.
Shocking.
But to Ron, the math seemed wrong. He became convinced that the concessionaire, the Stevens Company, was pulling a fast one on Giants fans. And the owner, Bob Lurie, had his hands in the profits. He called everyone.
Ron, you have been, have you lost a little bit of sleep doing this?
He called Stevens' meat supplier, got quotes on the price of the Doughboy wrapping machine.
I lost a lot of sleep. I spent a lot of time. I spent like 300 hours on this thing.
What Ron discovered was that Stevens would recoup their cost and a whole lot more.
The total amount of money which they take in would be $91,000, which is an awful lot of money, there's no question.
That's over $400,000 in today's money. Ron took his beef to San Francisco's Park and Rec Board, who could veto the price hike. One suspicious piece of math was just how fast Candlestick could wrap a hot dog.
They were wrapping 2.47 hot dogs per person per minute in 1978. What? And a year later, I guess they got some practice at it, slowed it down, they were only wrapping 1.6 hot dogs per person per minute.
So Ron, in front of the Parks Board, proved them wrong.
I wrapped hot dogs while I was lecturing them about the wrong they were doing.
You wrapped 12 and they could only wrap 2.7.
Right. I know Rec and Park was irritated with me.
Why are we watching hot dogs when there's Epstein files? Because a government that cares about these small examples of fleecing is a government that doesn't allow the Epstein scandal to happen. Because you have to care on every level. You're only in it for the spectacle, okay? You're basically one of those guys up there in the fucking stadium seats with a $9 hot dog, all right? This shit is the ground level of the Epstein conspiracy. First, they let you charge an additional nickel for a marginal increase in cost and time per hot dog delivered to wrap it in a little bit of plastic. And then they're fucking kids on Little St. James. Pay attention.
The more elaborate I got, the less pleased they were. I gave them every detail in every order that I had gotten from the Giants or from them. I mean, they were waiting for me to finish and go away, and then they could leave the hot dog prices the way they were.
Jack may be nimble, Jack may be quick, but the 5-cent bite continues here at Candlestick.
Ron lost this battle, but the Wiener War wasn't over. Because behind Ron's gambit was an understanding that his local government had the power, even the responsibility, to do something about this. It started with who actually owns and pays for stadiums. In Ron's case, Candlestick Stadium was built using public money. It's the same for many stadiums today.
Of course.
Even after they're built, most stadiums get mountains of your taxpayer money because they claim they're a public good. Take, for instance, Madison Square Garden. They get a special break on property taxes that has cost New York hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, most stadiums are exempt from property taxes. And what are we getting in return for all the free money we're showering on billionaire stadium owners? A boost to the local economy? Not really. Study after study finds they are a terrible deal. And do we get affordable tickets? Obviously not. From 1999 to 2020, ticket prices grew twice as fast as inflation. One driver of the continued increases, dynamic pricing. But billionaires get a great deal, a license to commit highway robbery at the ticket booth and concession stand.
Stadiums used to have shame. The business culture across the board, not just in stadiums, has grown more craven, more opportunistic, more willing to take advantage.
11 and a quarter for a hot dog? A single hot dog?
PSA, don't get the double vodka lemonade at Madison Square Garden. It'll cost you $45.
Woo!
Ron's 75-cent hot dog would, in 2025 dollars, cost you about $3.71. Today, in the same city, you'd pay $9 at a 49ers game. Consumed by this glizzy grift, I reached out to this guy you've heard from before, a lawyer and former government official who had some surprising news.
Charging too much for a hot dog in a stadium is already illegal under the prohibition on unfair practices, which most states already have on the books. When you're in a stadium, you only have one choice. And what that means is the stadium has effectively monopoly power over you.
These unfair and deceptive practice laws can be wielded right now by state attorneys general, or even the federal government, to bring down prices. Regulators use them all the time for all kinds of behaviors that exploit consumers, like price gouging during natural disasters. But I was skeptical. If it's so clearly illegal, why has nothing happened about this?
Regulators and attorneys general have grown complacent. They've gotten used to the high prices in stadiums just like we have. I think it's just a lack of imagination, a lack of will. Corporate America has realized that they can overcharge because enforcers aren't going to stop them.
It's not just lawsuits.
Mamdani, you have an opportunity.
State agencies across the country could write rules explicitly banning price gouging at the concession stand under these unfair practice laws. But there's an even more direct solution: those terrible public-private partnerships that owners love to exploit. When I was reviewing Madison Square Garden's own financial reports, something caught my eye.
Nah, not even then. Uber charges extra for rides when shooting happens. You know what pisses me off? People nowadays, for some reason, defend dynamic pricing. They defend price gouging. I don't know why. They're like, no, it's economically optimal to price something so that only the people who want it most get it, right? That's the whole point. And my answer is like, I don't give a fuck what's more economically optimal for the business. Why would that be my priority? I don't give a shit. What do you mean? Oh, they make the most money that way. Okay.
This line, under a section called Economic and Operational Risk. The report highlights the danger of the government pulling their special zoning permits. They have to get renewed every 5 or 10 years. And their $43 million a year tax exemption. Now, wouldn't it be a shame if the city asked for something in return? Or any other city for that matter. We seem to be one of the few countries, in fact, that finds sports price gouging acceptable. In 2016, 10,000 Liverpool fans walked out of a match to protest 77-pound tickets. They chanted, "Enough is enough! You greedy bastards! Enough is enough!" to to the team's American owner.
How do you feel about raising DoorDash costs during a snowstorm? I think there's a bit of a difference there, because in that case, the DoorDash is being, it's a risk being incurred by the person who's doing the DoorDashing, right? But like, price gouging is already illegal. It's just never enforced. But like, if a hurricane comes and knocks everything out, and then you're upcharging like bottled water by 1,000%, that is illegal. You know, it doesn't matter. You can be like, well, the laws of supply and demand. The laws of supply and demand are not prescriptive. You know, you don't have to do that if you don't want to.
In 2025, according to The Athletic, the most expensive ticket is 61 pounds, about $80 US.
Oh my God.
My Knicks ticket alone cost $277.
Somebody in chat earlier was like, it's just as bad in the UK. Buddy, you do not know how expensive tickets get here in the US.
That's about the same as the average cost of an NFL ticket.
Average cost of an NFL ticket. An NFL ticket at any stadium.
Meanwhile, many teams in the UK don't use dynamic pricing, they use fixed prices by seat, something New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani has proposed doing for the World Cup, where a finals ticket goes for $16,000 or more. And in the UK, scalping is highly restricted. Others are picking up the Ron Gordon price-fighting torch. Lena Khan, the former FTC commissioner and current advisor to Zohran Mamdani, promised to use New York City's unconscionable pricing laws to go after outrageous concessions. Whether it's taxpayer dollars, use of public lands, or just enforcement of existing laws, most American localities have leverage.
We should expect cities to demand conditions. One of them that they can be putting into all of these contracts.
There will be no people in the seats for the World Cup. Also, I think it's fucked up that at every Lakers game, the stadium is filled with the richest pricks in LA who are just there to flex on their coworkers. You know, like they're all there on their fucking office parties. They're not the biggest fans of basketball. You know, that's what this has turned into in the United States. We're like, yeah, you know, for these big ticket games, anyone, if they have the money, you know, like they line up the people willing to pay the most, and it's very, very expensive. But as a consequence, none of the people there are like actual fans.
Is street pricing.
A hot dog at that cart is $5. Now you go inside and a hot dog is $9.50.
Street pricing is the idea that the price of a hot dog inside needs to be the same as the price of a hot dog outside, which is the polar opposite of whatever Madison Square Garden is doing. As the Groundwork Collaborative reports, street pricing with no markup has been implemented in Portland's International Airport, and a few stadiums are already bucking the price gouging trend, and they're not going out of business anytime soon. The point is, we have the power to stop price gouging.
$5 for Glizzy's outrageous. I have never seen a hot dog in a stadium for only $5.
Even if our elected leaders pretend we can't or won't. That's what the Parks Board tried with Ron to shoo him away. But sometimes officials just need a little public pressure or one dogged pursuer of justice.
They brush you off. What makes you want to keep going?
Because I was right. They're doing something wrong. And if nobody's going to help you, then redouble your efforts and do.
It is so fucked up that we have laws against all this stuff, and the reason why none of it gets done isn't because the laws were removed or whatever. It's just corporations convince politicians to either ignore them or forget about them.
More.
When the Parks Board didn't take him seriously, Ron went to the press. He took it national. He wrote and called anyone and everyone. He got a letter from the White House, and economist Milton Friedman told Ron to spend his time more fruitfully.
Fuck you,
But
Friedman.
besides the rebuke from a Nobel-winning economist, the pestering worked.
Sports Illustrated covered it a couple.
Piece of shit. Friedman's such a fucking piece of shit, dude. What a fucking monster. Jesus Christ. Oh, you're trying to make hot dogs more affordable at the local ball game? Have you considered adopting a hobby that better rakes in corporate profits, you stupid piece of shit?
Couple times. The Wall Street Journal did it, Sport Magazine, CBS National News.
You sound like you're about to say, give me liberty or give me death.
Well, it's more a matter of give me fairness and give me my nickel.
Ron's one-man crusade finally moved the Parks Board.
You wouldn't blame Californian Ron Gordon for shouting hot dog. This week, San Francisco's Park and Recreation Board ruled that Gordon was right and they were wrong.
But he was one man fighting against one nickel in an unending march of rising prices. 47 years later, my total bill at Madison Square Garden was $638.53. $555.60 was 2 tickets, and those were the cheap seats. And the other $87.93 was food. For that much money, I could have gotten 2 round-trip tickets to Spain, where you can get a beer at a game for under $5.
You might be thinking, what's the harm in a $15 beer? It's not an essential good. It's not, your monthly bills. But we all deserve to live in an economy where you're not just scraping by, that you actually have a chance to have joy and be entertained and go to a sports game. We can live in that world. We used to live in that world.
Ron tried to keep that world alive, just a little bit longer. But he did so at a huge personal cost.
It actually, you know what it reminds me a little bit? It reminds me of a slowed down real world version of a phenomena in online games where a competitive online game is released, and then over time, balance changes are made to the game that only appeal to the interests of the top 0.001%. This happens all the time. They'll release a competitive fighting or strategy game, and then the devs are very clearly only listening to the best players, like the top of the line, highest quality, like tournament players, slowly changing things to optimize balance for them, but making things less interesting for the general population that once, they don't care. It doesn't matter if things are perfectly balanced because they're not as good at the game or whatever. So over time, fewer normies play the game. And as fewer normies play the game, there's less viewership for the tourneys. And as there's less viewership for the tourneys, there's less of a prize pool. And the less of a prize pool there is, the less of a reason there is to get into tourney play. If you burn out the bottom, you lose the top. And that's what I see happening in a lot of places in America with sports. They're making it more and more and more difficult for the just regular people to participate and to go and to watch and become like mega fans or whatever. It's all getting so top of the line. I think that in the long run, it's going to lead to a similar effect. People are only going to be able to really engage with sports as this distant thing. You can't go to your local fucking game anymore, right? And as a consequence, the pot dries up. There's less money in the pot. Because as sports become less popular, they also become less, less of a status symbol. Who would pay $60,000 to go to an NFL game if people just don't care as much about NFL anymore? That's why college football is so popular. Yeah, because you can actually watch the damn games.
Mostly phone bills.
I spent over $3,000 fighting them on hot dog prices.
Do you know what that is adjusted for inflation? Because I've done the math.
No, I'm not going to give a refund to my wife.
It's $14,000.
Ooh.
How does that make you feel?
Broke, poor, but it was an investment in justice.
Ron hasn't been to a game in about 30 years. Even back then, the big money pouring into sports didn't sit right with him.
The heroes are in the stands. I mean, the heroes in society. So I got tired of it. And yes, it did leave a bad taste in my mouth.
You told a reporter.
The more I knew about it and the less other people did about it, the more it became my responsibility.
What a guy.
No, but good for me. That's the truth. And once you know that much, don't quit to go make a difference for other people.
What a guy, man. What a real American.
It's important. I mean, I taught high school for 38 years, hopeful of making it a better world.
What a goddamn hero, huh?